know that most of what you've seen, read, or heard about Billy the Kid is untrue? My name is Gail Cooper. I'm a medical doctor and forensic psychiatrist. My specialty is murder case consultation for the defense. For 20 years, I've used my expertise to uncover the real Billy the Kid. Researching over 40,000 pages of archival documents and books, I've written the revisionist history. It's shocking, it's liberating, and I've written books demolishing the hoaxes, hijacking the history. My talks will share with you what I've found. Cover-ups, misinformation, and fakery, to use Old West lingo, will bite the dust. This talk presents WilliamVMorrison's earliest promotion of Brushy Bill Roberts. The information is from my book, Cracking the Billy the Kid Imposter Hoax of Brushy Bill Roberts. WilliamVMorrison's faking of Oliver Pleasant, Brushy Bill Roberts, as Billy the Kid actually started with Morrison's faking Jesse James. Morrison was formulating publicity stunts with old-timer imposters of famous Old West characters when he met Brushy. Morrison first contacted 69-year-old Brushy in 1949 at the recommendation of a Jesse James imposter named J. Frank Dalton, with J for Jesse, whom he was promoting. Historian Donald Klein, for his 1988 unpublished book, Brushy Bill Roberts, I Wasn't Billy the Kid, wrote that Dalton was Brushy's friend, and in the 1930s, both pretended to be Billy the Kid. Dalton then switched to being Jesse James. To Morrison, Dalton advertised Brushy as being Billy the Kid and living in Texas. In 1948, Morrison had also found a Floridian named Jim Hines claiming to be Lincoln County war outlaw Jesse Evans, who also told him about Brushy. Since Morrison's income came from selling car parts and copier machines, this growing stable of old-timers was potentially more lucrative. That they were delusional or liars didn't trouble Morrison, who himself impersonated being their lawyer. And he was attracted to the Old West by descent from Ferdinand Maxwell, an unsuccessful brother of frontiersman Lucien Bonaparte Maxwell, the fabled owner of New Mexico Territory's 2-million-acre Maxwell land grant and founder of Fort Sumner, where Billy the Kid was killed. That background fueled Morrison's other impersonation as a historian. It culminated in his Brushy Bill hoax. Possibly, Morrison never knew that in 1915 at 36, mentally ill Brushy Bill, dependent on lifelong caretaking by his devoted family or 4 wives in Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Texas, had displayed his first recognized delusion. He decided he was Jesse James's brother, Frank, when Frank James died, though Frank had been 36 years older than him. In the 1930s, similarly indifferent to real ages, Brushy had created his Billy the Kid persona, though being 20 years too young. Also, in about 1936, Brushy had aged himself 10 years to fraudulently qualify for Social Security benefits and hid his too young identity by renaming himself Oliver L. Roberts instead of Oliver P. for Pleasant Roberts. He subsequently stuck to the fake Oliver L. In June of 1949, Morrison traveled to Hyco, Texas to meet Brushy and check out his Billy the Kid act. According to historian Donald Klein, for his 1988 unpublished book, Brushy Bill Roberts' I Wasn't Billy the Kid, Morrison, then selling auto parts for Arthur Graves of Car Parts Depot, took Brushy to meet him. Brushy told Graves that many old outlaws lived in New Mexico and had an annual get-together. Implied is Brushy's network of fellow imposters. Another example is in Brushy's family member Roy L. Hawes's 2015 book, Brushy Bill, Proof That His Claim to Be Billy the Kid Was a Hoax. Hawes cited Brushy's 1949 letter to a Kit Carson impersonator, Orrin Artius Woodman, with both apparently deluded that Brushy, as Billy the Kid, was Woodman's son. A year before meeting Morrison, attention-seeking Brushy was promoting himself and J. Frank Dalton in a July 8, 1948 article in the Hinton Record titled Jesse James' Friend to be at Hinton Rodeo, July 14, 15, 16. For it, Brushy used a different fake persona with a fake father he named Al Wild Henry Roberts. He made up that this Al Roberts identified Charlie Bigelow's body as being Jesse James's to help Jesse escape. Brushy, playing a past scout, Indian fighter, and Bronco rider, threw in the Ross Brigade, a famous Texas Confederate cavalry unit, and Cynthia Ann Parker, a white child abducted by Comanches, a name-dropping technique he used for his impersonations. The article stated, Brushy Bill Roberts of Hyco, Texas, old-time friend of Jesse James, will attend the 18th annual Clanla Rodeo, July 14, 15, and 16, as a guest of the Hinton Kiwanis Club. Brushy Bill is an 82-year-old former scout and Indian fighter. Note that Brushy's Social Security benefits fraud birth date of December 31, 1868 would make him 80, and his real age, with birth date of August 26, 1879, made him a month shy of 69, though the next year he would tell Morrison he was almost 90, with Billy the Kid's birth year of 1859. The article continued. He was born January 1, 1867 at Buffalo Gap, Taylor, Texas. Note that Brushy was born in Bates, Arkansas, but reused Buffalo Gap for his birthplace as Billy the Kid. Brushy is the son of Al Wild Henry Roberts, the Indian fighter who fought with the Ross Brigade in 1863 when Cynthia Ann Parker was captured from the Indians. Brushy Bill was at Guthrie July 7 visiting with Jesse James, and when interviewed by the press, he stated as follows concerning the identity of Jesse James. I've known him for 69 years, and all this time I knew that J. Frank Dalton was really Jesse James. James used to come to my mother's home whenever he'd get wounded, and she would take care of him. My dad, Al Wild Henry Roberts, was present to identify the body after Charlie Bigelow, who was going under the name of Jesse Howard, was shot and killed. He came home and told us all about it and said he identified Bigelow as Jesse James. He said James's mother knew it wasn't her son, but claimed it was to help Jesse get away. Brushy Bill may be able to teach modern cowboys some of the finer points of bronc riding. He rode the famous horse Cyclone at Cheyenne, Wyoming in 1889 Tom Waggoner won $30,000 on Brushy for making the ride and gave Brushy $10,000 as a gift after he won the bet. Brushy will appear at the rodeo each night, and any old-timers may visit with him at the rodeo. On September 6, 1949, Brushy's Jesse James act made the radio. Brushy was interviewed by radio personality Maury Davison for the true Jesse James story and vouched for J. Frank Dalton as Jesse James. Brushy made up that shot Jesse came to his mother's house in Colorado when he was 7, and she nursed him for 6 weeks. Then Jesse's brother Frank James fetched him. Brushy's debunking relative, Roy L. Hawes, in his 2015 book, Brushy Bill, Proof His Claim to be Billy the Kid was a Hoax, used Brushy's 20-year regressed age to be Billy the Kid to date his tall tale to approximately 1866, when real Jesse James was robbing banks in Missouri, Iowa, West Virginia, and Texas, and was not wounded. Hawes also wrote that it was William V. Morrison who set up the article's publicity photograph of Dalton posing as Jesse James with Brushy. By January of 1950, William V. Morrison was actively promoting J. Frank Dalton as Jesse James and using Brushy to fake confirmation. On January 13th, he got them a New York appearance on We the People radio show called Everybody's Soapbox. That radio stunt landed Brushy on the January 20th, 1950 front page of his hometown Igo News Reviews for Carolyn Holford's Brushy Bill is Back from Gotham. It had no Billy the Kid claim, but proves imposter scams were profitable, with Brushy's New York trip having been all expenses paid. It also reveals more of Brushy's delusional personas. Holford's article stated, "Oh well, Brushy Bill Roberts returned the first of this week to chat with hometowners about his trip to New York after spending a week as one of the corroborating witnesses who are supporting a man known as J. Frank Dalton in his claims to being the real Jesse James. Brushy Bill is well known around Hico as a typical cowboy who dresses in Western regalia. Roberts gives his birthplace as Buffalo Gap in Taylor County. After living in this section as a boy, he returned to Hico in 1941 to spend the rest of his life. He was also a guest of Dalton's last September when he attended a party to celebrate the 102nd birthday of the man at his home in Merrimack Canyon's Stanton, Missouri, where Jesse James had a hideout during the Civil War. He was given both trips with all expenses paid. Dalton is one of the many claimants to the title of the notorious outlaw. He says he has been known since 1882 as J. Frank Dalton and had a petition in the Union, Missouri Circuit Court to change his name back to Jesse Woodson James. Note that William Morrison was involved. To support the claim, these witnesses were called to New York, and 2 of them appeared on a broadcast, We the People, to tell of early recollections of Jesse James. In telling about his trip, Brushy Bill told several people that this man is the real Jesse and said that he can recognize him from previous meetings. Among the experiences in his younger days, Roberts recounts riding in Wild West shows with Buffalo Bill Cody, breaking wild cattle in South America and serving as a bronc rider in the Cheyenne Roundup of 1899, working on a Mexican ranch during the Mexican Revolution, and doing scout duty in the Black Hills of the Dakotas. These are only a few of his tales of the Wild West, and he claims to have a collection of documents to authenticate them. The next month, on February 3, 1950, Brushy, still peddling J. Frank Dalton, was again on the Heiko News Review's front page in Cornering Jesse James. The short article had a big photo of Brushy and Dalton. It stated, "Shown is O.L. Brushy Bill Roberts of Heiko, who made a recent trip to New York to identify a man claiming to be the real Jesse James. The man, known as J. Frank Dalton, passed his 102nd birthday at Hotel Henry Hudson. He said that the man who was killed, thought to be James, was Charles Bigelow." All this front-page press for Brushy may have convinced Morrison to switch focus from Dalton, with the prize being just changing his name to Jesse Woodson James, to focusing on the bigger prize of Brushy's pardon quest as Billy the Kid. The Dalton-Brushy scam lived on. An August 9th, 1986 letter to the editor of the Dallas Morning News by a Ted P. Yateman stated, "It never surprises us to see the claims of people like Brushy Bill Roberts reappear. The more they are debunked, the more they surface. Roberts supported J. Frank Dalton's claim to be Jesse James, appearing with him on radio's January 13, 1950, We the People, with James Russell Davis of Nashville also vouching for Dalton as Jesse. James Russell Davis then decided to become Cole Younger, and Roberts became Billy the Kid. Dalton's case was demolished in court by no less than the daughter-in-law of Jesse James, Stella James. The James family descendants are as incensed as the Garretts must be. But Western hoaxes sell papers and give those who know better their latest laughs." In 1995, Jesse James was exhumed for DNA matching with his sister Susan's great-grandson and great-great-grandson. They matched, blowing the imposter hoaxing of J. Frank Dalton, William V. Morrison, and Brushy Bill Roberts out of the water. For Brushy's impersonating Billy the Kid, Morrison had been coaching him since 1949 on the History and Sites, and Brushy's media magnetism must have convinced Morrison of his showman potential. Already a Heiko, Texas character, Brushy paraded its streets in his fringed cowboy jacket while spouting his historical delusions to any listener. Morrison obviously thought it was a perfect scam. It wasn't. For coaching, there were just semi-fictional sources with giveaway errors and ad-libbing from real Billy's writings of 70 years past flagged faking. Also, everything depended on Brushy. Able to read and write, but no towering intellect, he had to remember the complex history to perform as if it had been his own life. As will be seen in talks to follow, Ollie Roberts, as he called himself, lacking any match to Billy Bonney, was about to mount the world stage to seek Billy the Kid's gubernatorial pardon.